The twin suns of Zarion Prime shimmered across the sky, casting long, fractured shadows across the crystalline towers of the Imperial City. From high above, the city looked like a jewel, a perfect lattice of light and color. But inside, tension had begun to coil like a living thing. The Empress sat upon her throne in the central hall, her tall, slender frame draped in robes of silver and sapphire. Her eyes, a deep violet that gleamed like the rarest gem, scanned the corridors leading to her throne room. Something in the air told her danger was near, and her senses, honed over centuries of ruling, whispered warnings she could not ignore. Around her, her elite guards stood in formation, their tall, armored bodies gleaming under the light of the palace. Each held a weapon infused with energy fields capable of cutting through solid rock. They were the strongest soldiers her empire had ever produced, trained to face any threat, any enemy, and to protect the Empress at all costs. Among them, however, was one anomaly, a human. Commander Jason Hall, sent from a distant planet called Earth, had joined the Empress's elite guard weeks earlier. He was shorter than the alien soldiers, with skin that glowed faintly under the palace lights and eyes that held quiet determination. Even now he stood silently by her side, scanning the halls with calm focus. The first warning came as a low hum that vibrated through the floor beneath them. The Empress's head tilted slightly. She had felt this before. It was the sound of advanced propulsion engines, but different from anything she had encountered. The hum grew louder, stronger, until a shockwave rattled the palace doors. Instantly, the alien guards tensed. The human soldier did not flinch. "Intruders," one of the lead guards hissed, gripping his weapon tighter. "Rebels from the outer colonies. They come with machines we cannot match." The Empress's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we will show them that the Empress is not so easily taken." Her voice was calm, but even she could sense the tension in the air. Within moments, the palace alarms rang. Hallways that had been peaceful only seconds ago now echoed with the sounds of panic. Sirens, flashes of warning lights, and the faint smell of ozone filled the air. From above, the Empress saw shadows moving swiftly across the towers, small and fast, like insects. The rebel forces were here, and they had come with precision. The guards moved forward, their steps synchronized, weapons raised. They were the best the Empire had, and yet fear twisted in their movements. One by one, the rebels appeared through the corridors, armed with strange devices that fired energy pulses unlike anything the guards had seen. It was clear immediately that these attackers were clever, trained, and deadly. The first wave of guards faltered, unable to predict the sudden strikes that came from multiple angles. Jason Hall, however, reacted with instinct and strategy. He dodged a blast that struck mere inches from his shoulder, then rolled behind a column, calculating the rebels' movements with astonishing speed. Unlike the alien guards who relied on strength and protocol, Hall adapted to chaos. He moved through the corridors like water, deflecting attacks, creating diversions, and even using parts of the environment as weapons. In seconds, he had turned a narrow hallway into a deadly trap for the first group of intruders. The Empress watched with awe. She had ruled for centuries, seen armies rise and fall, and yet she had never witnessed such calm intelligence under pressure. The alien guards, in contrast, were beginning to retreat, confusion spreading through their ranks. "Hold your positions," one shouted, but his words fell flat. The fear in their eyes betrayed them. "Stay close to me," the Empress whispered to Hall. She trusted him completely, even though he was not of her world. Without hesitation, Hall nodded. "I will not leave you," he said, his voice steady, without arrogance or doubt. In that moment, the Empress realized the difference between humans and her soldiers. Her people were bound by loyalty and fear, tradition and protocol. Humans, Hall proved, relied on courage, adaptability, and the stubborn refusal to abandon those they swore to protect. The corridors became a battlefield. Laser pulses cut through the air, sparks flew from shattered panels, and debris tumbled to the floor. Hall moved like a shadow, avoiding direct confrontations when possible, striking only when the outcome was certain. A group of guards hesitated at a junction and were quickly overwhelmed by the rebels' speed. In seconds, they fled. The Empress gasped as one after another. Her elite protectors abandoned their posts. Panic had consumed them, leaving her alone in the chaos. Yet Hall remained. He intercepted another attack, throwing himself between the Empress and the incoming blasts. His earthborn reflexes, honed from years of unpredictable combat training, allowed him to calculate angles and trajectories that seemed impossible. One alien guard who had been too afraid to act saw Hall's movements and felt a mix of fear and admiration. This human, fragile by physical standards, was acting with a confidence no alien could match. The Empress followed his lead, moving quickly through secret passages she had rarely used. Hall's guidance was calm and precise. "This way," he said, pointing to a narrow corridor that led toward a hidden launch bay. The Empress did not question him. She trusted him completely, for the first time in her life relying entirely on someone from another species. As they ran, Hall explained in brief sentences what he noticed. "They expect fear. They move fast, but they repeat patterns. We can use that. Follow me and stay close." His voice was like a lifeline, steady amid chaos. The rebels pursued them, but Hall's strategy slowed them. Explosions erupted behind them as he rigged energy pulses to redirect the attackers, creating temporary barriers. Every move he made was deliberate, calculated, and terrifyingly effective. The Empress had never imagined that one human could make such a difference. Finally, they reached the launch bay. A sleek escape ship waited, hidden from common view. Its engines hummed quietly, ready for launch. Hall scanned the area before opening the access hatch, ensuring no immediate danger. He gestured for the Empress to enter first, then followed, his calm presence steadying her. Once aboard, the ship lifted off, soaring into the sky just as the first of the rebel forces arrived at the bay. From the observation window, the Empress watched the chaos below. The city in turmoil, her guards scattered, the crystalline towers glimmering amid flashes of energy. She felt a mixture of fear and awe, fear for what had been lost and awe at what this human had accomplished. Hall sat in the pilot's seat, his hands moving quickly over controls that were partially alien in design. "We need to move fast. They'll follow us, but there's a safe route through the asteroid belt. We can lose them there," he said. The Empress leaned over, watching him manipulate controls with precision. Every movement, every decision was made with purpose and clarity. "You are unlike anyone I have known," she said quietly, more to herself than to him. Hall glanced at her briefly. "I'm trained to survive, and I never leave someone behind." The Empress thought about the soldiers who had fled, the ones who abandoned her in the hour of need. None of them would have risked themselves like this human did. Hall's loyalty was different. It was chosen, not commanded. It was brave, not fearful. And it was inspiring. As the ship navigated through the dense asteroid field, Hall's strategy proved flawless. He twisted and turned the vessel through narrow gaps, using the natural obstacles as shields against pursuit. Each maneuver required split-second calculations, and each was executed perfectly. The Empress clutched the rail, her heart pounding, yet she felt a strange calm knowing he was at the helm. Hours passed in tense silence. The rebel forces eventually gave up the pursuit, unable to match Hall's ingenuity. The Empress finally allowed herself to relax slightly. She turned to the human soldier, studying him. His face was calm, almost serene, though she knew the tension in his muscles told another story. "You stayed," she said simply. Hall looked at her and nodded. "I stayed because it was right, because I promised I would." The Empress realized that this simple statement contained a truth her entire empire could not understand. Humans, she saw, were unpredictable, courageous, and loyal beyond reason. This one soldier had saved her life and perhaps the future of her empire, not with strength alone, but with intelligence, bravery, and heart. For the first time, the Empress felt a spark of hope. If even one human could stand against impossible odds and prevail, perhaps there was more to learn from them. Perhaps humans were not just allies. They were a force that could inspire change, strength, and survival in ways she had never imagined. The ship glided through space toward a hidden system where they could regroup. The stars stretched out endlessly around them, and for the first time the Empress felt a rare sense of peace. She did not know what challenges awaited them beyond this moment, but she knew one truth. With a human like Jason Hall at her side, she would face them without fear, and in that thought, the Empress understood something profound about humanity, something that could shape the future of her empire forever. The hidden system was quiet, a cluster of barren moons and silent asteroids orbiting a pale star. The Empress's escape ship glided among them, shielded by the shadows of jagged rocks. The city on Zerion Prime had been left behind, still ablaze with chaos and confusion. Yet here, in the cold emptiness of space, the Empress felt a strange sense of calm. She was alive, and at her side was the human soldier who had saved her life. Commander Jason Hall sat at the controls, scanning the sensors with unwavering focus. "Are we safe here?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of command. "For now," Hall replied. "They can't track us through this asteroid field easily. But we can't stay forever. They'll come again." The Empress nodded, her thoughts heavy. She had ruled for generations, seen countless uprisings, but never had she faced an enemy that had shattered her defenses so completely. Her guards had fled, her city had been attacked, and yet she had survived because one human refused to abandon her. That simple fact filled her with a new kind of respect, one that no ceremony or title could ever earn. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the system. Hall monitored every sensor, calculated every possible trajectory, and made adjustments that kept the ship hidden from the occasional patrol. The Empress observed him closely, fascinated by the differences between human and alien thought. Where her soldiers relied on strength, protocol, and fear, Hall relied on intuition, creativity, and courage. His mind was always working, always searching for solutions, and always protecting her. "You move like the ship is alive," she said at one point, leaning over to watch his hands dance across the controls. Hall smiled faintly. "You have to respect the machine or it will betray you, and you have to respect the enemy or you will fail. Everything else is just reaction." The Empress considered his words carefully. They were simple, yet contained a depth she could not ignore. Humans, she realized, were shaped by struggle, by unpredictability, by challenges that forced them to think and act in ways that even the most advanced aliens could not anticipate. Their temporary safety was broken when sensors detected a new threat. A fleet larger and more organized than the rebels they had escaped moved toward their position. These ships were different, sleek, black, and designed for rapid strikes. They carried weapons that could tear through the strongest shields in moments. Hall's eyes narrowed. "They're not just after the city. They're after us," he said. "And they know where to find us." The Empress's eyes widened. "Then we must fight." Hall shook his head. "Not yet. We fight smart, not just hard. We use the environment. We use surprise." The Empress watched as Hall began preparing the ship. He moved with speed and precision, rewiring energy conduits, setting up defensive pulses, and programming the ship to move unpredictably through the asteroid field. Every action was deliberate, every calculation precise. She could not help but feel awe at his skill. In all her years of commanding armies, she had never seen such effectiveness, such intelligence in battle. The fleet arrived at the edge of the asteroid field, scanning for signs of their quarry. Hall held the ship still, hidden behind a massive asteroid. The Empress felt a surge of confidence in him. "You always know what to do," she said. "I adapt," he replied. "I have to. It's how humans survive." The first ships moved past the asteroid expecting nothing. Hall waited until they were deep enough, then activated the ship's concealed weapon systems. Pulses of energy erupted from hidden turrets, striking the lead ships with precision. Explosions rocked the void as Hall manipulated the controls, using the terrain to his advantage. The alien fleet, confident in their numerical superiority, had no idea what was coming. As the battle raged, the Empress realized something profound. This was not brute strength, nor was it alien technology that gave them an edge. It was the human mind, quick thinking, courage, and adaptability. Hall's strategy, his calm in chaos, and his refusal to give in to fear, were more powerful than any army she had ever commanded. Hours passed as the engagement continued. Hall moved the ship through narrow corridors of rock and ice, striking the enemy where they were weakest and retreating before they could respond. The Empress observed quietly, learning without realizing it. She saw how humans could use logic and instinct together, how they could turn desperation into advantage, and how a single individual could change the course of events. At one point, a massive ship broke through the defenses and aimed directly for them. Hall's hands flew over the controls, rerouting energy to shields and launching a series of calculated countermeasures. The Empress held on as the ship twisted and spun, avoiding the devastating impact by mere meters. The enemy ship was destroyed in a brilliant flash, its debris scattering across the field. When the fight ended, silence returned to the asteroid system. The Empress stepped out of her seat and approached Hall. She studied him, her mind working to understand this creature who had saved her life and her empire. "You are unlike anything I have ever known," she said softly. Hall looked at her, tired but steady. "Humans are different. We survive, and we protect those we care about. That's all." The Empress realized that different did not begin to cover it. This human had saved her life, guided her escape, and defended her empire with nothing but skill, courage, and loyalty. Her soldiers had fled, her city had been attacked, and yet she survived because one human stood firm. Over the next days, they traveled to a hidden base on a small moon. The Empress used the time to recover and plan her next moves. Hall assisted her, sharing insights about tactics and strategy. The Empress listened carefully, absorbing lessons she had never considered. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable and clever, their ways of thinking shaped by struggle and necessity. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the rocky surface, the Empress and Hall sat together, watching the stars. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. "I have always believed my empire was strong because of my power and my soldiers. But I see now that strength is more than that. It is courage, ingenuity, and loyalty. Things I have never truly understood." Until now, Hall nodded. "It's why humans survive, and why some of us will fight to protect others, even against impossible odds." The Empress turned to him, her eyes reflecting the pale light. "Then I am fortunate that one such human stands with me. Perhaps it is time for my empire to learn from you, to learn from humans." Hall smiled faintly. "It's not about teaching. It's about showing what is possible. Humans don't have the same advantages your soldiers do, but we find ways to succeed anyway. You can take that lesson, and your people will grow stronger." In the following weeks, the Empress began integrating Hall's insights into her plans. She trained her remaining guards in new strategies, emphasizing adaptability and quick thinking over rigid protocol. She observed Hall in every action, studying how he approached problems and solved them with precision and courage. Slowly, the Empress's respect for humans deepened, and her admiration for Hall grew into a quiet trust she had never felt before. Then came the decisive moment. The rebel fleet, now larger and more organized than before, attacked again, determined to destroy the Empress once and for all. The Empress and Hall led a combined force of loyal soldiers and restructured units into battle. This time they were prepared. Hall's tactics turned the enemy's strength against them. Using deception, traps, and clever maneuvers, they outsmarted the attackers at every turn. The battle was fierce, but the human soldiers' courage inspired the alien troops. Where they had once fled, they now stood firm, learning to adapt, think quickly, and trust in one another. Hall moved like a conductor, guiding the forces with calm efficiency. The Empress watched, her heart swelling with pride and understanding. Humanity, through one soldier, had changed the fate of her empire. When the battle finally ended, the enemy fleet retreated. The Empress stood on the bridge, her eyes on the horizon. She turned to Hall. "You have done more than protect me. You have changed my empire, changed my people, and shown me what true courage looks like." Hall shook his head modestly. "I just did my part. The real strength comes from those willing to stand and fight no matter what. Humans, aliens, it doesn't matter. Courage is universal." The Empress smiled. For the first time in centuries, she felt hope for the future, not just for herself, but for her people. She knew that with humans like Hall at her side, her empire could face any challenge. She had learned the value of ingenuity, loyalty, and bravery, and she had learned that one human soldier, standing firm when all others fled, could inspire a force greater than any army. The twin moons of the hidden moon rose again, casting their pale light over the landscape. Hall stood silently beside her, a steadfast guardian, a symbol of humanity's strength. The Empress understood now that she had witnessed something extraordinary, the true power of the human spirit. And in that knowledge she found the promise of a brighter future for all who followed her. The stars stretched endlessly above, and in their vastness the Empress saw not only her empire, but the potential of a bond between species, between humans and aliens, that could reshape the galaxy. And at her side, one human soldier had proven that courage, loyalty, and ingenuity could stand against any odds, change the course of history, and define the future.